Hello there, I'm the student, and in this video I'm going to show you the weirdest government reform in all of EU4. And the crazy part is that even though this government reform shouldn't really exist because you aren't technically able to take it, you're going to see in a second what I'm talking about, even though it is basically unavailable reform, if you manage to take it, you essentially get double the buildings regardless of the building slots, as well as, of course, double the bonuses, so double manpower, double production efficiency, and all that as a native tribe, which actually means that this could make native tribes a playable nation. So let's get right into the video and start off with the non-existing government reform. So you can see I'm here on Christmas Eve on 1541. I just loaded in the historical start date, not in Iron Man mode, just to show it off to you. But anyways, you can see I'm playing as Wichita, which is a native tribe in North America. You can see pretty close to Mexico. And you can see my setup is perfect to show you how this government reform works, because I'm bordering New Spain and another native tribe. You're going to see in a second why that is important. Now, first of all, you're going to notice that I have all the government reforms filled out. Honestly, by this point, it's like easy to do that, especially if you build like a few more buildings and stuff like that. For the natives, then you gain quite a lot of reform progress, and you only have actually 5 reforms to take, so it's not really that you could do anything with this reform progress after that anyways. Now, the interesting thing that I want to talk about is this reform over here, trading with foreigners. Now you can see I have another reform enacted right now, and that's because you are not allowed to be a migratory tribe, which I technically am right now, to take this reform. And the reason for that is that this reform basically makes you a non-native nation. And that is basically one of the reasons to reform out of a native tribe without taking the tier 5 reform. So let me just go to the settle down mode for a second to show you what this reform actually does. So now I'm settled, and now I can switch to the trading with foreigners reform, which you can see right now you need, of course, a neighboring country to reform of. And that only means that you need a neighboring country that has embraced feudalism. And in this case, it is New Spain or their colonial overlord in that case. So Spain that I would reform off of. In that case, this means that I will become a monarchy, lose 350 reform progress, which actually means that I will be only able to take like tier 2 monarchy reform at that point. So pretty bad. On the other hand, I will embrace all institutions that Spain has, and of course, I will be switching out of the terrible native tribe reform. So let me just show you what that actually means. Now, obviously, on top of that, you can see one upside to taking that is that I will automatically settle every tribal land of mine. So I will become way bigger immediately. But you're also going to notice that this reform is giving me negative 10% core creation cost. Now, obviously, you probably guessed it. If I click this option, if I click this button over here, I will not be a native tribe anymore. And therefore, this reform is a native tribe reform. I can't have that enacted anymore, which means that this core creation cost, this negative 10%, is really a very bad joke, because you literally cannot have this reform active. This reform is only there to abandon all of your native reforms. Okay, so this modifier is really just a humiliating joke to the player, in my opinion, but whatever. We get 10% core creation cost for not even a day, and become a monarchy after that. There we go, and settle all of my tribal land, as you can see. And now, as I said, I don't have that reform anymore. I'm a monarchy now. So why the hell is 10% core creation cost in there, you might ask, right? So first of all, you can see I can take up to tier 3 reform instead of 5. So I really lost a lot of reform progress. And actually, I have all of the institutions embraced. As you can see, colonialism, Renaissance, and feudalism that Spain had embraced before. Now you might ask yourself, why is that such an interesting reform? The interesting part about that is that you can go another path with that same reform and actually keep that reform and even reenacting that reform over and over again and gain a lot of bonuses from that. You're going to see in a second what I'm talking about. So for now, let me just reload the game that I had before where I still had the ability to enact that. And then we'll choose a different path of taking that reform. So you see, I'm not on the border of this other native tribe for no reason. I actually chose that because this native tribe also has embraced feudalism, as you can see. And yeah, actually, it is of course because of that start date that it happened so late. But this will happen pretty often in your games if you play as a native tribe. The Europeans arrive, Portugal colonizes stuff in the Mexico region or something, and then the natives will overtake the institutions really quickly. So all you need to really do is wait for a native tribe to embrace any institution, so feudalism in that case. Obviously, right now, let me just settle down again to unlock this reform. You can see I will still adopt the monarchy of Spain because I'm bordering Spain and they are a colonial nation. They get probably preferred in that sense of which nation I want to reform of. But what I can do is just, I can, as long as you haven't settled yet, you can of course migrate, and you can migrate away from the colonizers in that case. Obviously, you could also conquer the colonizers later, and if you conquer them and don't have a border anymore with them, then it would have the same effect even if you are settled. For example, you can of course conquer the provinces. But anyways, I will migrate away from Spain now, which means that I can settle now away from the colonizers. And that means that I have a new option once I let 1 day pass. So you can see now, I will adopt the government type of Lipan, so my neighbor that has embraced the feudalism institution. The interesting part about that is that they are, of course, a native tribe, just as I am. You can see even the same reform. Which means that once I choose that reform over here, that normally is intended to switch you out of a native tribe reform, is actually switching me into a native tribe reform. And that's because I'm adopting the government type of the nation that I'm reforming of, right? So in this case, a native tribe. I will again settle every tribal land province, same as with Castile, or Spain rather. I will embrace all institutions, in this case only feudalism from them. I will lose 350 government reform progress, but you can see I'm already at the maximum, okay? I'm already at tier 5 reform, so I can maximum lose this 99, right? Or rather this 49, because I'm spending 50 on that. So that's not a big problem, and I'm adopting the native tribe government, which means that essentially nothing changes, okay? And let me just do that to see, to let you know how it looks like. If I choose that now, it will say, first of all, that I inherit all of my tribal land, first of all. That's nice. You can pretty much exploit that to the maximum extent if you get all of North America as your tribal land, by getting all of these tribes into a federation and then reform into a federation and so on, right? But yeah, let's just say you did that and you settled all of your tribal land for free, and you are still a native tribe. As you can see, I have 0 government reform progress, but I can't go below 0, so the 350 that I lost technically are not really lost. And on top of that, I actually have this reform enacted right now, which is really funny because this reform, as I said earlier, is basically intended to switch you out of a native government type, and therefore you will never be able to get the 10% CCR of that reform. That way, by reforming off of a native tribe, you actually are able to get the 10% CCR bonus. So that was already pretty weird stuff, right? You have to admit that. But now it gets interesting, because there is actually one thing that this is very, very useful, and I would even say, if you basically do that in all of North America, super overpowered. So the thing that I'm talking about is native buildings. You can see that the native buildings, they look like that. As you can see, you can build them in every single province. As you can see, you have normal building slots. If you settle down, you can develop your provinces. By the way, keep in mind, rapid collapse of society, that modifier will go away because I have embraced feudalism right now. But anyways, you can develop your provinces to unlock further building slots, for example, just as in normal provinces as well, just that you have 50% and 20%, so 70% in total additional development costs, which of course hurts, but let's be honest, if you have all of North America as tribal land, then you don't care about developing these provinces anyways. Now the interesting part is these tribal buildings, they have pretty powerful modifiers. You can see, for example, 50% local manpower, same as barracks have, of course. 1-4 level palisade, you can build that in every single province if you want. Of course, it costs 0.5 maintenance, so it's like a normal fort level 1 basically. And then you have the storehouse for production efficiency, and then very important, very overpowered in my opinion even, the Three Sisters field that you can actually build in every single province. As you can see, it's not a one-time building that gives plus 50% local goods produced modifier. And if you build that in every province, you will gain a lot of money from the production. You can see in this province right now, with one single development in production and only livestock, it's still giving me 0.3 already because of the storehouse and the increased goods produced that you can see right here. But now is the question, what is the interesting part with that in combination of the trading with foreigners reform? The interesting part is that this reform also has a hidden effect behind the player's eyes that you cannot really see anywhere. But what that means is basically that, as I said, this reform is intended to change a native nation in a reformed nation, in a proper monarchy or republic or theocracy, right? And therefore, this reform is intended to get rid of your native buildings and convert them into normal buildings. Okay, so for example, the Great Trail over here, the local manpower building, will actually convert into barracks. So you have the same bonus for the same money, but with an actual building, and you lose your native building after you're no longer native, of course, right? Believe it or not, this reform actually does the same thing right now in the background, even though I'm still a native nation. This event takes a few days to trigger, so I'm just going to let the game run for a second. But just have a look at that. For example, you can see the storehouse giving 50% additional production efficiency over here. The Great Trail giving 50% manpower over here, as well as, of course, the 4 giving me a level 2 4, as you can see, on that one province. Now let's see what happens after a few days when the event, the hidden event in the background, actually triggers. So first of all, I lose rapid collapse of society, very nice. And after a few days, you can see, there it is, that actually there are more buildings in this province. You can see that down there on the building slots. I have literally 7 out of 2 buildings in that province. 7 out of 2. And now you might ask, yeah, but I don't see these buildings in this list. Yeah, that is because these buildings that are added right now from the hidden event, they are normal buildings that a normal nation could build with normal building slots. But they are existing behind this surface of native buildings. Okay, just to show you what I mean. For example, the production efficiency, by the way, it went down because my tribal development went away. But the production efficiency, you can see, it is now 50% from the storehouse, from the native building, but also additionally 50% from a workshop that is actually built in this province. You can't see it, but you can obviously see that the building slot is used, which, as you can see, the number of building slots available doesn't matter. The building will get built anyways. And that means that I have literally 100% production efficiency in this province over here. And the same thing goes for the manpower. You can see I have the Great Trail native building for 50%, and I have also the barracks building for 50% additional manpower increase, which brings me up to a total of additional 100% manpower in this province from buildings. That normally it should only be 50%, okay? Same goes also for the fort. You can see that the fort is actually built even though I have a native building for a fort anyways. So you can see there is a capital city fort, there is a castle, and there is the palisade bonus that I have from my native building, which makes this province right now a level 4 defensive fort building that actually I think is not even unlocked yet. I mean, I'm not sure, but let's just go to tag Spain, for example, to check that. Yeah, you can see the next level of forts is not even unlocked yet. So I have basically a high level 4 now in my native tribe that otherwise wouldn't even be able to be built as a normal nation. And now on top of that comes that I haven't spent any money on that, right? Because it's supposed to basically give you the money back that you invested into the native buildings. But in this case, I built, for example, the Great Trail for manpower, and I got 2 times the effect for 1 times the money. So I spent 100 ducats, I got 100% manpower increase instead of only 50% as it's intended. Same also goes for the production efficiency and for the fort. And now comes the really crazy part about that. You can literally do that in every single province you have. So even after you did that. So for example, what I could do right now, over here you can see 3 building slots. Let me just build a few buildings. So for example, again, the Great Trail. There it goes. I just increased the timer for a second. Let's just build another one, pretty important one, the storehouse for the production efficiency. There it goes. And one more building. You know, I could just build the palisades. So where are they? Over there. There we go. So now you can see in this other province, I have now built 3 buildings, 3 out of 3. As it was intended by the building slots. But now obviously I can do the same thing again. Obviously right now I'm bordering New Spain again, so probably I will reform from New Spain. So let's just say I would, I don't know, vassalize these guys over here and feed them a few provinces, so that I'm no longer bordering the actual Spain. Just like that. Of course, I did that in like with the console right now, but you can imagine how you can do that in a real game, right? So you would just conquer everything or create a vassal that has a border with a European nation, so that in the end you only have a border with a direct land border with a native tribe that has embraced any institutions. And that now what you can do is, as you can see, I just built up this province over here. What you can do is you can just switch out of that again with 100 reform progress, you can see I'm making 0.2 every month, and I can't spend that on anything else. So I can just save that, and then when it's time that I have 100 saved up again, I can switch out of the trading with foreigners reform and then switch into it again once I update that I want to reform off of Lipan. And again, the same thing will happen. I will technically abandon my native status, but I actually stay a native tribe. I only lose the 50 reform progress that I spent anyways. And I trigger the hidden event that you can see right now. Let me just show you that live. After a few days, will technically convert, my native buildings in that province into normal buildings. There we go. 6 out of 3, as you can see. And this literally means the same thing happened as happened in my capital earlier. You can see even 2 buildings appear on the map right there. You can see right now I have a level 3 fort in that province. I have, again, 100% production efficiency, and I have, again, 100% additional manpower increase, as you can see from the barracks and the Great Trail. Over here, the same from the workshop and the storehouse, which under normal circumstances should be exclusive to each other. But with this technique, you can actually double your buildings in that province. And again, you can see without any problems going over the actual buildings limit as far as you like, right? I could have developed that to 10 before, then I would have 4 building slots. Then I would have probably built a 3 Sisters field as well. And then did that trick. And then I had 7 out of 4 again. And yeah, I would have the 50% goods produced modifier as well. You can see right now, even without any development cost modifiers, it is only at 85, only technically. So if you take whatever infrastructure ideas, and by the way, you can also take indigenous ideas, for example, for 5% and so on. So if you stack a little bit of development cost, what you can do with that is actually you can play a super tall native tribe that actually has double the buildings for half of the money, as well as gains insane bonuses of the native buildings. By the way, also keep in mind that you can get a ceremonial fire pit, for example, for advisor cost negative 50%, which actually you can get twice if you are a totemist. There's an event for. You know, you can play a totally tall native tribe with negative 100% advisor cost. So you will be making insane amounts of mana. And on top of that, you can build double the buildings in all of your provinces, okay? So let's just say you conquer new provinces, you build the native buildings in that, and then you do the same thing again. By that time, you have 100 reform progress again. You switch out and in of the trading with foreigners reform, re-roll the event to update all of your buildings and gain double the buildings in all of your provinces, including, as I said, this crazy 50% goods produced modifier that you can build in every single province. So basically 50% global goods produced modifier. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is actually a totally broken strategy for native nations. And yeah, that is actually as surprising for me as probably it is for you. But I would say with that technique and with that reform, that Paradox really tried to hide in the backgrounds of all of the reforms they had, I think with that reform and that trick that I just showed you, I think with that, native tribes can actually play a very overpowered and interesting game. So let me know in the comments if I should actually do that strategy in a real game. And let me also know what you would do with that trick and how you could exploit that maybe even further. But anyways, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video for this week, and we are going to see, as always, on another Monday.